Hi there, folks, and welcome to our Learn Live session, where we'll be diving into the world of Fusion development and Fusion development teams, as well as learning about low-code development as a traditional developer. This Learn Live is part of a month-long initiative called Low Code February, where we'll be sharing app development tips, Fusion teams insights, as well as hands-on tutorials to skill you up on the Power Platform, Azure, and other popular developer tools to enhance your productivity. My name is Homo. I'm a cloud advocate here at Microsoft, focused on Power Apps and Fusion development. Today, I'm with my colleague Somelez. How are you doing?
I'm good, bro. I hope you're doing well too. Hi, everyone. My name is Somalez Digo, and I am also a cloud advocate here at Microsoft, focused on the Power Platform, mainly for students, but all the developers within this world. Because at the end of the day, we are all learners. And Homo, what is the most basic thing or basic fundamental about our Learn Live sessions each and every time we do them?
Well, for one, we have the learn modules up for you. You can follow the link on screen right now and go to them and have them follow along with us, because the format of our learn live today will format exactly what's in these learn modules, so you don't have to get lost. Or if you want to just follow along with us on screen, that is totally fine. Maybe take a picture of the QR code or just take a note of the link, and you can follow up with the learn live modules after we have completed. But we certainly cannot do these sessions on our own. Behind the scenes, we have an amazing team, which includes our moderators, Sonia and Matt, as well as our producer, Ryan, who's making sure that all your chats will be answered. All your questions will be answered in chat, and as well as making sure that everything runs smoothly for this Learn Live session. Today's Learn Live is a bit different from the rest, as we have two modules instead of the usual one. These two modules are, as you can see, Transform Business Software Authoring with Fusion Development Teams and Understanding Low Code as a Traditional Developer. These two modules are part of the Transform Your Business Applications with Fusion Development series up on Microsoft Learn, which highlights how Fusion development allows your business to build better applications faster by bringing together professional developers as well as citizen or low code developers. Wow, what a mouthful. But we don't want this session to be just one-sided. We would love to interact with you as well. Isn't that right, Someleze?
Yeah, definitely. Always, when it comes to Learn Live sessions, we always try to make it as interactive as possible. So, just like Homer had said, just make sure that you let us know where you're actually joining from, because this is a live session, and also just let us know what you truly love about the Power Platform. And another thing, which is a little bit extra, can you also let us know whether you're a citizen developer or a traditional developer? Or in this case, you're just coming here to learn on how you can actually leverage both worlds. Homo?
Yes, I am actually. I come from both backgrounds in a way. I studied traditional software development, so my background is in C# and .NET and Azure and all those nice things. And then I came to know about the Power Platform much later. After I had studied traditional coding, I fell in love with the low code space. Not just Power Apps, but Power Automate, Power BI, and all the other amazing products and services that are inside of the Power Platform. And then later than that, I came to know that I could mix the two worlds together. And that is what we'll be talking about today during this Learn Live. What about you?
Yeah, definitely. I'm the same as you. I also come from a traditional developer background. I did some professional development within my university years, and also ventured into the Power Platform, which is pretty nice actually to see the power of the Power Platform and how you can actually build solutions using just low code or no code at all, but also trying to leverage the power of the Power Platform into enhancing and bettering your professional development solutions as a traditional developer. But without really wasting any time, we are here today to actually just start off and show you what it actually means to understand low code as a traditional developer. So we should just take it away, Homo. What do you think?
Sure, sounds good.
Yeah, definitely. So if we just quickly go over to my slides, and you will learn that today we are trying to transform business software authoring with Fusion Development with Fusion Development teams. But really, what does that really mean when it comes to Fusion Development teams and how you can actually author your software whilst you are trying to build a better software within the organization? Worry not, because today you'll actually understand how you can grow the productivity across business units with Fusion development teams, increase tech intensity with a Fusion development team, organize business and IT professionals into a Fusion development team. So, what I am trying to say to you today is that you will learn all of the skills from this specific session, how you can actually understand what Fusion development teams do using the Power Platform, and also something a little bit extra in which Homolemo would actually introduce us to just now. But I have a question really. Where do we really begin when it comes to fusion development and fusion development teams? Homo, what do you think?
It's really about understanding your team, right? Coming down to realizing what their different skill sets are, and then once you realize what skills everyone has, then you can identify the problem that you're trying to face. And then once those two are at your base and you have them figured out, that's when you can come together to solve a problem utilizing everyone's skills. If someone is a citizen dev, they don't have much of a background in traditional coding, but they know about low code tools and they know the ins and outs of the business. They can join together with those who have been coding and developing software for years and years using tools like VS Code or Azure or .NET, and they can come together to build a holistic fusion centered solution. So that is the basis of fusion development, and that is what we'll be explaining to you during the course of this Learn Live session.
Sounds good. I am really interested to actually see what we are going to learn today. So, what's our first step really when it comes to fusion development and fusion development teams? And I'm pretty sure that Homolemo would actually answer this as we go along with the session. But what's been a common question around Power Platform really amongst students from universities and campuses, and also professionals within the business sphere, they actually want to understand how they can best take advantage of the Power Platform and use their existing professional development skills with the Power Platform. But the main thing when it comes to that is that they have no idea where to start. In this case, would it be, where do I start? Do I go to Microsoft Learn and all of those things? But once I've learned and picked up the skill with the Power Platform, what do I do to actually get my Fusion development team? And what kind of characteristics would I be actually looking for when it comes to that specific team? So, Homo, do you have some guidance around that and what people can actually do?
Sure. So speaking exactly to that, our first unit here is meet the team. So throughout the course of this Learn Live, we're going to be explaining fusion development through an actual use case. But before I get there, let's quickly define it. Fusion development is meant to empower both your development and business teams to create better software faster. The fusion comes in because everyone on the team, no matter what skill level they have, all contribute within their comfort zones. So you'll be able to use the tools that you're comfortable with. If you're a pro dev, you can use things like VS Code or GitHub. And if you're a citizen dev, then the Power Platform would be more in your comfort level. So today, your journey with Fusion development begins with an introduction to our fictitious team members in our use case, who are discovering that they need to improve their processes to lower the friction of doing business. So let's take a quick look at the use case that we have and see if it's familiar to a situation that you may have encountered. The company's business involves sending field technicians to customers' houses to install and repair all brands of heating and air conditioning. Their business has grown rapidly over the past year. Along with this growth has come the friction of scaling core business processes. The software development team is stretched thin and is working as fast as possible on a huge backlog. Meanwhile, the business team relies on manual and paper-intensive work processes that just do not scale. And this is causing an undue stress and inefficiencies on the entire company. So during the course of the module, we'll be curating a Fusion team and learning about how to incorporate different skills to build a holistic Fusion solution. So let's go ahead and meet the team. We have Kiana, who is a full stack developer and software architect specializing in C# and .NET. She has written and designed many of this company's apps, but is getting stretched thin by all the new requests happening. Kiana is familiar with Power Apps, but at a high level, and is very eager to learn about how she can use her existing skills to empower citizen developers. Malik, on the other hand, is the office manager, and he is the heart of the company. He answers all customer queries, he schedules appointments, and even helps technicians find answers where they might need help. In other words, he's overworked and needs to automate some of the repetitive tasks to provide an even better customer service. Then we have Maria, who works in inventory management and makes sure that the company runs like a well-oiled machine. She verifies the warehouse that it has enough parts, and if not, she orders more stock through a legacy system that Kiana, the full stack developer, wrote. But more than that, she does audits, and she does audits on the inventory and checks with vendors for the best prices and other inventory or supply management tasks. We also have Caleb, who is the lead column technician. He has tremendous knowledge and spends a lot of time mentoring junior technicians. His time is very valuable, and the company wants to make sure that he visits as many of their valuable customers on a daily basis. And the last member of our team, which is crucial to creating this Fusion development team, is Pretty, who is responsible for making sure that the IT systems are up and running. She worries a lot about how secure everything is, and if the apps are accidentally leaving any backdoors so that people can come into their system. She is also stretched thin, like everyone else, and she needs to make sure that the new apps that are being built are easy to govern and administer. And I think we can see from all of these team members, maybe like your own team where you work, you can identify certain aspects of the job that can be easily optimized to enhance productivity. Now, as we're building this Fusion team, we need to choose which business problem to solve and how everyone's skill sets can contribute to the end goal. Now, Caleb, who is the lead field technician, says he has a problem that's perfect for the team to solve. And this will be the theme that we carry out throughout the rest of this Learn Live. The problem involves a manual data entry with paper and pencil, phone calls, legacy software system, and lots of time traveling between customer houses and the central warehouse. Maria, who oversees that inventory management system, understands and identifies it as their field inventory management system. The company's lead dev will then acknowledge the issues with this current system and also address the fact that her development team does not have the time or maybe even the resources to sit down and modernize what's there or write new portions of that program or that system. At this point, it's important to make sure that everyone on the team understands exactly what the field inventory management system is, which will then pave the way to understanding how they're going to be fixing it. And then Malik, the office manager, brings up a brand new term, tech intensity, which he says will help explain one, how they'll work together, and two, how they're going to move on to solve the field inventory management problem. So, Someleze, would you mind just explaining exactly what tech intensity is?
Of course. So, right before we actually get into what tech intensity is that some of you may be already asking yourselves questions around how can you best take your traditional development skills, let's say for an example, you're a mobile app developer or a web app developer, and bring them onto the Power Platform. So, not to spoil anything too much when it comes to what this specific Fusion team actually does, but as a mobile developer, you can actually take advantage of the skills that you already have around manipulating web APIs and all of those things and use them within the Power Platform to actually access your data from data sources that are not within the Power Platform. So, if you have any doubts around you becoming a Fusion Dev team member, then this specific segment of this session that I just spoke about is your answer. So don't have any doubts, and let's get right into what tech intensity actually is. So Khomolemo actually gave us a few of the members within the team around Malik and and all of the team members. So when you look at tech intensity, really, is that you have to look at the adoption of the technology, the capability of the individuals to use the technology, and the trust organizations have in deploying the technology. So each dimension of tech intensity builds upon others. And what this actually means is that you have two diagrams where the first is actually a Venn diagram that explains how tech intensity is the interaction or the intersection rather of the technology adoption of a company. An individual's capability to use technology and organizational trust to deploy the technology, and also the more those three areas overlap, the higher the tech intensity of a company. So when you look at the second diagram in this case, which is also a three-dimensional cross-section of the Venn diagram, really. So it's meant to illustrate that to increase tech intensity or to increase the overlap between each of the company or the three components, a company must have cross-cutting communications across departments. So even now, you can already see or tell that companies or departments within that specific company need to have a some form of communication already established to actually achieve that specific common goal. So, if you look at it from another way, tech intensity is all about breaking down the silos that people work in and enabling cross team productivity. So, for an example, if you don't really get what happens within your organization and you have those three teams that are working, so let's say for an example you have inventory specialists that actually work within your team, and also you have the guys that are working at the inventory warehouse, you wouldn't understand how Kiana's team in this case of software developers is involved. So you ask yourself, where does the technology in tech intensity come in? So, if you've been looking at Power Apps, really, or in this case, you are just starting out, is that Power Apps excels at enabling business professionals develop applications that are easy to create and deploy. Business professionals that use their domain knowledge to create those applications from the data that they already have access to using Power Apps are called citizen developers. So this is where people who do not necessarily have the tech background but want to build solutions, we call them citizen developers within the Power Platform. And when citizen developers are enabled to create apps that exactly suit their needs, any development team can focus on delivering high value reusable software across the company, which eases the backlog of that team really. And the software that they create will help provide the data needed by the citizen developers, or in this case, if the professional developers want to be part of that team, they can actually use their professional developer skills where either they're calling a web API to actually access data that is not within the data sources that they can be able to have access to. So if you look at it, is that Power Apps is actually all run from the M365 tenant. So if you have an organization, or let's say your university and you're working in a team, you already have an M365 tenant. So it's fully managed from an IT perspective from the very beginning. So you don't necessarily have to worry about a lot of things or the heavy lifting around that. But the question is, let's look at the fusion development teams really. So, how do they really work together to create the software? So, for an example, business and IT domain experts across the company identify and collaborate to find solutions to company wide problems. Business owners, on the other hand, create Power App applications that exactly address and solve the problem. The software development team focuses on providing data and complex logic to the Power App application that it can actually consume. So, those web APIs that I was talking about earlier on. And also, now, last but not least, IT can easily manage the rollout to get the Power Apps into the hands of the users immediately. So, in this case, people within that specific company or specific organization. But looking at it at a lens, when you look at this diagram that is in front of you on the screen, is that it shows how this company, which is Van Arstel, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, I know Homo would like to correct me in this case, is that the fusion development team is actually organized. So how is it really organized within that? Is that you look at how each job role previously discussed in the company maps to the role the person plays in a fusion development team. So it is driving home the point that business professionals work with technology professionals. So again, fusion development teams, they work with technology professionals to build better apps faster. That is the whole point of fusion development teams. There's also a flow chart, obviously, on this graphic that you actually see on the screen, where it actually indicates the steps of the fusion development process at a high level. So the first step is to actually kick off, or when a citizen developer identifies a problem and a team forms around how to solve it. The second step is to actually plan to solve the problem, and the third step is execution. Or when a citizen developer uses Power Apps and professional developers use the tools they are comfortable with to build their applications. So, again, this is what a fusion development team looks like, and citizen developers working with professional developers to increase the VAR Astel's tech's intensity. This is where you find your tech intensity, where you are bringing all of these different people from different departments working together using different kinds of technologies, your Power Platform, and the professional developers' skills. Right. So everybody works with tools they are already comfortable in. Everybody is more productive because they're not being asked to learn anything that is completely new. So if they're already exposed to Power Apps, they can bring in their Power App skills. And if they're already exposed to professional development, they can bring in their specific professional development skills. So that is this brings us to a question where what is this field inventory management system that this entire team, Malik, Kiana, Caleb, Maria, and Preeti, need to actually figure out? Which brings me to ask Homo this question. How do they actually do this, Homo Lemo?
Yeah, sure. And just before we get to that, this is a very there's a lot of stuff that we have to know in this module. That's why we will be talking for quite a while, but I think it's we want to drive home some of these topics first before we do actual work. And I think that is a big part of fusion developments, where we need to understand what goes on behind it before we can actually implement what we have learned. So, just to reiterate what Somleza just said, one way to increase tech intensity for this company, as well as other companies that you may work with, is to have people from various departments work together to create software apps to solve business problems. And these apps can be written by business pros or citizen devs that are tailored to the exact needs and supported by data and function, which has been provided by the pro devs. So together, both citizen and pro devs form a fusion development team. So with that in mind, let's just look at the current field inventory management system and how its current inefficiencies workflow costs the company many hours each and every day. So while Caleb, the field technician, performs a repair service in the field, he discovers a part of the repair work that he does not have on his truck. Right? Let's just say that this is a scenario that happens once in a while, where he goes to the field and he finds that there's a part that he really needs, but he doesn't have it with him or in his truck. So usually what he'll do is he'll sometimes call another technician if they're nearby to see if they have that part and if he can pick it up from them. Otherwise, he'll travel back to the central warehouse to pick it up. And then once he's at the central warehouse, he'll fill out a piece of paper indicating that the part has been removed. If that part is not in stock at that warehouse, Caleb will then fill out another piece of paper or form to indicate the part that needs to be ordered. So Caleb and his team could visit more customers per day if they didn't need to spend time traveling back and forth to pick up missing parts. And that is one issue, but there are other issues that stem from this, because while Caleb calls the warehouse, he's interrupting Malik, who's the office manager, and his team's workday and other responsibilities. And in addition to that, while technicians are in a hurry to get back to the field and finish their service, many times Caleb and his team will forget to indicate that they have removed a part from the warehouse. Since this is such a manual process, and while you're in a rush, you might not remember to fill out that piece of paper. Thus, the inventory counts will become off. So this means that Maria's inventory management team needs to do additional manual inventory audits. And because the inventory is essentially managed on a piece of paper, Maria also has to check that paper up to multiple times every day in order to make sure that parts are ordered and stock is kept up to date. Maria will also use a legacy web app, which is developed by Kiana and her software development team, to keep the company's internal warehouse inventory up to date and order any needed parts from external vendors. And I think as we're listening to this scenario happening and all of its effects happening because of one thing that wasn't managed well, you might be wondering how these folks from different departments who have different ways of doing their jobs will form a team to solve this particular problem and all the other problems that stem from it. After all, as Someleza said earlier, to increase tech intensity, the technology we will need has to be quite easy or efficient to use for each team in their unique situation. And that will need inputs from various members of the team. Now, now that the problem is identified and and we know exactly what the main issue is and how the other issues stem from it, let's talk about finding a fusion development process to building a solution. So Meleza, what do you think?
Yeah, let's get right onto it because each and every single time when you are trying to solve a problem, you actually need to have a process in place. Whether you are solving a problem for software or you are trying to form a team, and in our case, we are trying to form a fusion team so that we can actually have a fusion development team that will produce solution to our specific problem. So, what is the process really when it comes to fusion teams? Fusion development teams actually create better software faster by empowering citizen developers or business professionals to create applications that solve unique problems alongside and supported by their professional developer peers. And again, just to drive the point home, when it comes to professional developers and how they assist their citizen developers peers, that's where they actually bring in their professional developer skills, either by utilizing web APIs and so forth. So, the field inventory management system problem involves folks from different fields. So, from the field technician, inventory management, and software development teams. The way Caleb, Maria, and Kiana organize themselves is instructive in how many fusion developments can actually work and do the actual work. But what is the actual process? So again, when you look at what Maria says to her teammates, is where they look at the interesting thing about the Power Apps. So what's interesting about Power Apps? The very same base knowledge when it comes that you do not need to really know anything about software development in order to create an amazing app that solves a specific business problem. In fact, you would look at the trickiest part, which is knowing when and how to ask for help. When the Power Apps framework doesn't supply the functionality to build the app and how to get the software development team involved, that is actually when you bring in your professional developers to actually work with your citizen developers. So, even though citizen developers build these power apps, they still need help from the professional developers. So, you guys that are out there who are already professional developers. In fact, it's common for professional developers to create power apps themselves to quickly replace legacy systems too. But a lot of the time, what will happen is that citizen developers will get data from certain types of web services. And in this case, what are they called? I would like for you guys to actually put it in the chat, but I'll give you the answer just now. I've been saying the same thing. They're actually called web APIs. So citizen developers may reuse existing web APIs to get data to build their Power Apps or work with professional developers to create new web APIs. Regardless, the professional developers still do what they do best, using the language and tools they know best. And here's the coolest part. If Power Apps doesn't supply a control for the user interface, there's a way for a professional developer to build one. So now, before we carry on, I just have a one slight question to everyone who's watching this session. Most especially if you have been exposed to the Power Platform and Power Apps, what is this specific way that professional developers can actually build their own controls if they can't find that specific control within Power Apps? So I'll leave it to you guys to put it in the chat, and hopefully by the end of the session, we'll get the right answer. If not, I'll give you one. And I am leaving this for Homolemo as well to actually answer the question at the end of the session. So hold him accountable. So this sounds like like professional developers are actually an integral part of building Power Apps and Fusion development teams. Yes, of course. The answer is actually yes. When it comes to the development process and fusion development teams, you need professional developers as much as you need your citizen developers. And how do you organize your team then? So, in this case, you can look at how folks can come from across the organization and get together to solve a business problem. And based on that solution, business professionals, citizen developers use Power Apps to create software applications perfect for their needs. Professional developers support those Power Apps with data from web APIs, like I mentioned earlier on, using the tools they know best, keeping their existing workflow. The team also keeps tracks of individual apps developed apps to not duplicate efforts and find out about and reuse existing web APIs. So you do not want to reinvent the wheel in this case. When it comes to all of this team organization, you want to first check, is there a software or a solution that's already been built? If yes, then why not reuse what's already existing to build or to address that specific solution, even if you're working within a fusion development team? And I think citizen developers actually benefit more on this because professional developers already know this when it comes to these things. So, again, when it comes to the team organization, really, you need to look at the folks that are really coming from across the organization to get together, like I mentioned earlier on. And again, when it comes to that, based on that discussion, business folks become citizen devs using Power Apps to build out solutions. As you can see, that's the entire process or the path that happens within a fusion development team. And then pro devs can support the Power Apps with data from web APIs using the tools they know to preserve familiar workflows. That is where, let's say, for an example, Caleb comes into play within this team. And then last but not least, the team tracks organization level apps again to reduce duplication. The reason why I'm saying this again is to stress to citizen developers and professional developers who want to build their own Fusion team to actually keep track of existing software, existing web APIs, or existing solutions, to reuse those and build from there and not build from scratch if it's already being invented at the first place. Okay, but the question is, how do we actually solve the field inventory management system? So in this case, when it comes to the team, they need to settle on obviously they're on two things for their first app using the Fusion development teams process. Firstly, the ability to select a warehouse and see its part inventory, and the ability to adjust part inventory at any warehouse. So, while this sounds pretty straightforward in this case, it will give the team practice at having citizen developers create Power App applications powered by a web API that returns warehouse locations and part inventory. The finished Power App will be able to be used by Maria's or Caleb's team. Even better, Kiana's team already has web APIs developed to support everything. So they don't necessarily need to reinvent that web API because it's already existing. They can just reuse it. So since this team or Kiana's team or the entire Fusion dev team know what to do, how can they best start off and actually build this application or build the solution for the field inventory management system? I know you want to get to that answer quickly, but we need to just take a breather first and actually check if everyone is following along with the session. It's time for a knowledge check, Homo. What do you think?
Yeah, no, let's take a bit of a break from the constant information overload, and let's see if we've actually learned something from the past 40 minutes or so. So I think the links will be coming to you in chat. If not, there is a link on screen. We'll be putting up soon, aka.ms/polls. Just vote on the questions that show up on our screen, and then we'll talk through them and then tell you what the final answers are. So let's go ahead with the first question. Our first question here is, how does tech intensity increase adoption of technology at a company? Right. So our options are A, B, and C. A, it increases the amount of software a company uses. I mean, that makes sense. What do you think? Trying to make sure that there's enough software, there are enough business apps that can make sure that the business is running smoothly. That sounds like a good enough answer.
Yeah, it sounds like a sound answer, but there's a few things that we actually need to consider when it comes to tech intensity. So, for an example, do you want to be able to utilize every specific resource that you have within that company in terms of trying to get into an optimization of some sort when it comes to building that software or when it comes to building a fusion development team? So it might be in a case where you're looking at C, where each component of tech intensity is able to be optimized independently, freeing the company to focus on specific tech stacks. But I mean, I may be wrong in this case, and that I'm hoping that everyone that's actually voting in for those specific answers and for this question, they actually have the right idea. I mean, we spoke about this just a few moments ago and what tech intensity really is and how Malik's team and the entire Fusion development team that's being built from this is actually trying to take advantage of that. But I have a gut feeling that it might be C. And I think, Homer, you thinking it's around A or something like that?
I'm actually thinking it could be B. It enables cross-team collaboration, and as I'm looking at the results here from the audience, about 62% of you agree with me as well. So Meleze, about 37% agree with your answer of C. Should we let them know what it is?
Yeah, definitely. Let's get into it. Hopefully, I'm correct and everyone else is correct.
Right. The answer is B. We just got that on screen now. B is the answer to this question. It enables cross team collaboration. And this is because collaboration helps companies create software capable to solve their team's needs, right? Once you understand what everyone needs, once you understand how one team's problems may create or affect another team's problems, then you are able to move forward and create a solution that benefits everyone. Um, with that, I think let's go to the second question. Let's move right on. Um, Question two, we have, why is cross-team collaboration necessary for fusion development? We have A, is to identify gaps and solve problems efficiently with solutions that will benefit the company as a whole. B, professional developers need to monitor what citizen developers um, are doing to make sure that it's correct. And then we have C, which is fusion development dictates that management signs off on new software that multiple teams use. Now, I am not a big fan of B, where professional developers need to monitor what I'm doing as a citizen developer. That's because in this case, in a fusion development team process, everyone is equal. We all are bringing different skills to the table. No one needs to monitor. Of course, we can help. We can, if someone is stuck with something, if there's a functionality missing, a professional dev can add onto that experience. But in no way does someone need to actually see what someone else is doing and make sure that it's right. So B is not sitting well with me at all. What do you think?
Yeah, me neither. I have to agree with you on that. And as you go on ahead and actually dissect what B actually means and what a fusion development team mean, I think my best bet would be actually BA, and hopefully I'm correct because obviously when it comes to fusion development teams, like you said, a professional developer would then come in and add to what's already being built by the citizen developers, so that they can be able to enhance and build um, better software much more faster. So A kind of suits this question as an answer, which is identifying the gaps and solving problems efficiently with solutions that will benefit the company as a whole. I mean, C, obviously, I'm not too sure about it, but I hope everyone's actually voting in and giving in their answer. But I have to go with A because, again, with B, being monitored is not really a good sign of a fusion development team now, is it?
Sure, no, no, that is true. And looking at the results here, everyone who has voted agrees with your answer of A, to identify gaps and solve problems efficiently with solutions that will benefit the company as a whole, right? Fusion development is all about creating software that solves business problems better and faster. So A definitely suits the knowledge check there. Thank you
Yeah,
for
and it's
all
a
the votes. Oh, sorry.
yeah. No, I was just gonna say it's the correct answer as you can see on the screen, and it seems like everyone has actually been following along this whole concept of fusion development teams and what they are supposed to be representing.
Sure, sure. Yeah, no, thank you everyone for those votes. And we will have a separate knowledge check later on in this Learn Live session. So, with that,
Yeah,
yeah, we're going to be diving into our second Learn module for this session, understanding low code as a traditional developer. Um, Power Apps can be a powerful tool for both citizen devs and pro devs. And with this specific use case in mind, with this field inventory management system, this module will give you a soft introduction to how Power Apps works and what the Power Apps formula language is. If we just take a look at our learning objectives here, we're first going to be understanding what is Power FX and how to use it. Power FX is that formula language that I've just spoken through. It is the formula language of Power Apps. It's an Excel-like, really easy to use language that can add extra logic and function to your Power Apps. And then we're going to be creating an actual Power App very quickly and modifying that Power App using Power FX. But first, before we get to the actual building, Somaleze will be setting our scene here.
yeah, of course. And I'm hearing you talking about PowerFX and it being a language, and that actually sounds awesome. But how do we necessarily bring it into our scenario with Malik's team and the entire Fusion development team? So look at it this way. The growth of Microsoft Power Apps has led many traditional developers to take a look at Power Apps. I mean, who wouldn't? When they do, they step um, into an app development model that is like other development environments, but not quite the same. Power Apps has been built to allow all people to achieve more by building apps, but it can also be a valuable tool for traditional developers looking to create apps quickly, iterate through testing, and get those apps in front of users on tablets, phones, and on the web faster than ever before. And for those professional developers that are listening in, that sounds like cross platform development to me. I don't know what you're saying. So, obviously, what we're doing today, we will actually help you bridge the gap between your existing traditional development knowledge and how Power Apps actually works, including app logic, user interface creation, and data flow. But how do we actually set the scene for our scenario here? So, you work as part of a new fusion development team at Van Arstel Heating and Air Conditioning. In a fusion development team, really, business users develop applications with Power Apps in order to scale how quickly applications can be built. In addition to built-in capabilities, Power Apps applications may use data and logic provided by an internal or by the internal IT organization in the form of web APIs. And again, we're touching on web APIs, as I've been saying this entire time, which allows business users to get their needs met faster without overloading their IT organization. So this is like a separation of concerns of some sort. So again, with the fusion team that we're talking about today for our scenario, let's try to meet the teammates and learn about the business problem that you can actually try to solve. So in this case, again, just to reiterate what Homolemo has spoken about with the team, is that Kiana has been supporting a long running forms over data app written in ASP.NET years ago, which people in the office use to check inventory and order parts if necessary. They have been asked to create a mobile version of the inventory app by field workers, and they think, or Kiana thinks, that it would be a good use case to try out Power Apps. And I would also want to try out Power Apps when it comes to inventory management. And then we look at Maria as well, because she's also a traditional or professional developer. So she's been studying up on Power Apps in her spare time. They believe what or believe that Power Apps excels at enabling business professionals develop applications that are easy to create and deploy. So they will provide Kiana with requirements for the new app and do some work on the Power Apps mobile app with them as well. So you bring in two professional developers, or you bring in Kiana as a professional developer and Maria as a citizen developer to actually figure out how they can be able to build that specific app. So that is how you actually set the scene. But you're a traditional developer and you are watching this.
Um, Sorry about that. Let's just swiftly move along. I'm just going to quickly speak about what low code is and how you can leverage it as a citizen or pro dev within your business, right? As a software dev, like Kiana in our use case, you may have worked on some high code or traditional developments. You've probably developed everything from .NET Core console apps to ASP.NET Core web APIs to reusable libraries shared via NuGet. As you sit down to learn Power Apps from a traditional background, it helps to understand what is meant by low code. The term low code can mean different things to different people when they first hear it. But what we actually mean when we talk about low code is it is tools like Power Apps where you only need to write a small amount of code to get the same results that would normally take several hours to get when you are writing lines of code in traditional programming languages. In Canvas-based Power Apps, the low-code scripting language tool is Power FX. That is the language we will be learning and using throughout this module to build our app. However, let's just look more in depth at all the things that Power FX will be doing for us and the freedom it has to optimize through low code. All data operations in Power FX are asynchronous. The developer doesn't need to specify this, nor does the developer need to synchronize after the call is over. Most importantly, the developer doesn't need to be aware of this concept at all. So that really makes it easier for citizen devs when they are building Power Apps. Power FX also uses the same syntax and functions for data that is local, in memory, and remote in a database or service. The user need not to think about this distinction because, again, Power FX does that for us, right? It automatically delegates what it can to the server to process filters and sorts there more efficiently. And then the next characteristic of Power FX is the way that it deals with relational data, right? When you have two different tables related through let's say, a many to one relationship, you need to have knowledge of the foreign key, similar to a join in SQL, to gain access to specific data. However, in PowerFX or low code, this is not the same case, right? In fact, when working with low code languages, database keys are another concept that me as a maker or citizen dev doesn't need to know about, right? The maker can use simple dot notation to access the entire graph of relationships from a single record. One other very nice thing about PowerFX or low-code languages is the projection. When writing a query, many developers will choose the select star, which that brings back the entire or all columns of data in your data source. However, PowerFX does analysis of all the columns that are used through the entire app, even across formula dependencies. Projection is automatically optimized, and again, the maker need not know about what that word even means. To be honest, up until a few weeks ago, I didn't even know about the concept of projection in creating apps. Let's just also look at this example that we have. We'll notice that we've been having basically code that essentially does the same thing. One line in PowerFX and the other line in JavaScript. In this example that we have now on screen, the lookup function implies that only one record should be retrieved, and that is all that is need to be brought back into our app. If more records are requested by, let's say, using the filter function in PowerFX, for which thousands of records may qualify, only a single page of data is brought back at a time, on the order of 100 records, right? So the user, the low-code user or the maker or the citizen dev must gesture through a gallery or data table to see the additional data inside of your Power App. And because that is automatically brought in into our Power App, the maker can then reason about large sets of data without needing to think about limiting data to reasonable chunks. And some people might be listening and say, you know what, that might make my app slow. That might not be the best way to work with data. But again, this is all at base level, and there's obviously better ways on doing, basically everything. But that's just how Power FX or low code handles it. It makes it as simple as possible for the maker. And again, you'll notice that with low code, it runs only when it is needed. If you see on our screen, we'll see that we have defined a formula for a text property, right, of a label. This is a label inside of Power Apps. As the variable or as the condition or the value changes, the lookup function that we've used is automatically recalculated, and the label is updated without us having to do anything else, right? I did not have to write a onChange handler for the specific action like you might need to do in JavaScript or any other languages that monitors change. So needing to remember that the label is dependent on a certain formula, we just have to write it once, and that value will always be constant, and it will always act against what you wanted to do exactly. And some of you might recognize this as declarative programming, right? As we have been discussing this entire time. The maker specified that they wanted to have in the label, and that is And that is what we will get, no matter how or when it is fetched. As long as I've specified this is what I want, that is what I will always get. And I think the last thing to note when it comes to local languages, but especially with Power FX, is the Excel like syntax, right? You can almost, in some cases, maybe even in most cases, you can directly translate Excel formulas to formulas that you use in Power FX. Of course, the more complex the formulas get, this might change quite a bit. So, with Excel being used by hundreds of millions of users, most of which know that ampersand sign is used for string concatenation, JavaScript uses the plus sign, and maybe other languages might use the double quote sign. PowerFX rather meets makers where they are, especially if you come from an Excel background. You are able to quickly learn about PowerFX and how to use PowerFX inside of your Power Apps. And the last one, which I would like to speak about, and one that I find actually really cool, is the way that PowerFX handles display names and localization. First name, as we see here, is used in the PowerFX formula, like how nwind underscore first name is used in the JavaScript formula. In Dataverse, there is a display name for fields and tables as well. Um, and it's a unique name, right? So obviously you might have columns and fields and tables and such that have the same name, but they're all unique depending on how you build them, where you've stored them, and so on forth. But the display names are often much more user friendly. As we can see here, it just says first name. And what's nice about Power Effects, especially if you're in a multilingual team, each team member can see the table and field names in their own language. And in all cases, Power FX will make sure that the correct logical name is sent back to the database so that the data matches properly. So that's another cool built-in feature when it comes to Power FX. And with that, we'll send it back to Somaleza to dive deeper into understanding exactly what Power FX is.
Yeah, that actually sounds really cool. And I'm pretty sure that people want to understand what really Power Apps is all about. And in most cases, people are using all these different kinds of programming languages and all kinds of frameworks to build their solutions. So for citizen developers, like Homer has said, we actually have Power FX. So obviously, after that quick background on local development, as Homer just explained, you can be able now to see that Kiana can be able to notice the similarities and differences between the programming languages they've traditionally used to build applications like C Sharp and JavaScript and Power FX used in Power Apps, just like Homer has just demonstrated and just explained to us with that JavaScript and Power FX example. So, Microsoft Power FX really is the low code language for expressing logic inside of canvas based Power Apps. And Power FX is inspired by Microsoft Excel and follows many of the patterns found in Excel expressions. And just like Homer Lemon has said, if you already have a background with Microsoft Excel, you'd find that using Power FX actually comes quite naturally to you. So, what are expressions and formulas within the Power Platform or within Power FX? It's just that you don't just write expressions in Excel. You write formulas or recipes for how to calculate a specific sales value. So, for an example, what you see on the screen, hopefully it's quite visible for you guys, is that A1 is equal to B2 times 2. So, which is a formula that defines the value of A1 at all times and is recalculated automatically as the column B2 changes. So when it comes to Power FX, it actually follows the same formula pattern. Cells are replaced with the properties of controls or objects. So you can see there where you see input text, input.text, that will be your text box within Power Apps, and then you can use Power FX to actually manipulate it properly. So here's an example again, where we have taken this Excel formula from obviously Stack Overflow. Everyone knows Stack Overflow, most especially professional developers, for reverse string search within Excel. So what we then did is actually create a PowerFX formula from it. All that is different is that the references to the cells or to the columns within Excel have been replaced with references to control properties like the text boxes within your Power App using PowerFX or the labels within your Power App. Not only does this same syntax, not only does the same syntax and same functions work in PowerFX, but you can also notice something else in the animation, obviously on the screen, is that as input.text, which is the text box changes, which is at the top of the box, the label, which is label.text at the bottom of the box, is automatically recalculated. The app is behaving like a spreadsheet. It is recalculating all the time without the need for the app developer to add code to define how to make that happen. Similar to how they can actually use the similar function or formula within Excel, they can then transform it and put it within Power Apps or Power App using Power FX. So, what is a declarative app model, as Homer had just briefly mentioned when he was talking about what is low code? So many traditional application development stacks feature an imperative model for development across the stack. In other words, the app developer has to write code for everything that happens in the app, right? Within the app, you look at the authentication and the authorization, the business logic, and the user interface, server or cloud service configuration, and so forth. With PowerFX, when you look at it, it is a declarative language just as Excel is. The developer defines what behavior they want, but it is up to the system to decide how and when to accomplish it. To make that practical, most work is done through pure functions without side effects, making PowerFX also a functional language. So if we look at a more colorful example that is on the screen again, you can see there's different sliders happening here, is that we use a formula for the fill color of the screen within Power Apps using PowerFX. As the green sliders that control red, green, and blue are changed, the background color of the screen is automatically changed as it is being recalculated. So for an example, there are no unchanged events for the slider controls as would be common in other language. In fact, there is no way to explicitly set the full property value at all, which has a huge advantage. There is only one source of truth. If the color isn't working properly, you only need to look at the formula to understand why with PowerFX. You don't need to search through your app to find a rogue piece of code and that set the property at an expected time. In fact, there is no time element. The correct formula values are always maintained using PowerFX. So you can also note something else within the specific execution on the screen. As the sliders are set to green and blue change to white and match. This is done through a simple formula which you see on the screen on each controls color property. So obviously I don't want to go through that formula, but that's an if statement. And what's common with PowerFX and other programming languages and also Excel is that we all have if statements and we have different ways of writing them. What's common here with PowerFX is that even Excel uses a similar syntax when it comes to that. So the logic for setting the label color is isolated from what is happening for the fill color. These are two entirely different calculations. Instead of large monolithic procedures, PowerFX logic is typically lots of smaller formulas that are independent. And it's also easier to understand and enable enhancements without disturbing the existing logic using PowerFX. So again, now there is time and a place for imperative step-by-step logic, and PowerFX offers a place for that logic too. Apps write back changes to databases and start automations with the press of a button, while spreadsheets do not do these things. Whenever possible, for all the benefits cited above and consistency with Excel, we favor the declarative approach using PowerFX. And again, all of this information that we're giving to you around PowerFX and also what is local development for you as a traditional developer, you can actually find it on this Learn module that we're actually following. But enough chit chat, and we are talking about all of these different things when it comes to declarative app model and also when it comes to what is low code as a traditional developer. Let's actually do something because I believe that Homolemo actually has something in store for us to actually do and understand how traditional developers can be able to use Power Apps to build their own solutions. Homolemo?
Yeah, sure. Let's actually get to the building parts of the Learn Live. We've spoken so much about Fusion Dev and how pro devs can leverage local tools such as Power Apps. Let's actually see how it gets done. We're going to be building a very basic app on Power Apps from data and seeing how we can just expand that with just a little bit of time. And then, just by seeing how much we can add, for those of you seeing this for the first time, you will be able to imagine what else we can add onto it as well. So we'll be creating a mobile app that people in the field will use to check inventory and order parts if necessary. We'll be using Excel as a data source to stand in for our dev data. So usually our data would obviously maybe be sitting in SQL Server, maybe even Azure Cosmos DB, or any other data source that could even include Dataverse. But just for the purposes of this particular demo, I will be using an Excel sheet just to act as that data. So let's go ahead and switch to my browser here. And we have Power Apps open. As you can see, I've already logged in with my organizational account, and then we're going to be creating our app. So because we already have data somewhere, we want to build an app from that data. So let's just go ahead, and on our screen here, we have all of these different data sources. I'm just going to go to the create options here and then go to more data sources because we want to use a Excel data source. I've already loaded an Excel sheet onto my OneDrive, which has all the data that I need to implement this Power App. So as I am here, I'll be creating a connection. Let's just wait for that to load up. I'll be using OneDrive. That's where my Excel sheet is. Let's go ahead and create a connection to my OneDrive account. And then from there, I'll be able to connect to Excel and use that data inside of my Power App. What happens when you create data from a existing data source is that it already generates apps, a 3-page app for you. So we can just build on from that. It's nice to have a starting page. So let me just click on my Excel sheet there. This is the table inside of the Excel document. So let's connect to that. And as it's connecting to that Excel sheet, it will just be reading the data that I have, all the tables, the columns, data, anything that's inside of that document. It'll pass that into Power Apps and automatically create a 3-page app for me. This 3-page app is usually just a browse screen with all the elements on it, as well as a edit or add screen, and a screen to see the details of each of those elements. So there you go. I had pre-existing data, like most of you who work in companies do. You might not already have your data inside of Dataverse, but there you go. I have my pre-existing data. I brought that into Power Apps, and with just a few simple steps, I've already generated a Power App. And you can see it's a working Power App. It's there's a gallery of items there. I can search through various items. Let me change just fix my spelling there. There you go. I can click into items, see the detail of that item. If I want to, I can edit the some item. Maybe I want to just add it to the name there. I can save that item, and that change will actually show inside of our Power App. Just to go ahead and prove that this is a working Power App. It does everything that a base app can do. It's kind of like spinning up templates for a ASP.NET Blazor app, right? So let's exit there. And I'm actually reading the exercise from the Learn module that we have. We've already generated the base app. And then what we'll be doing now is we'll be adding an inventory request screen so that if we have inventory that is missing, we are able to request that from the warehouse. So it says here that we need to select our edit screen, which is this screen here. And we need to basically duplicate the screen, because again, Power Apps is about working fast. We don't want to make everything from scratch unless we really have to. So let's go ahead and duplicate this second screen here. That will go ahead and copy all the elements on that screen to this over here. Let's fix our zoom there. There you go. Then the next thing that we're going to be doing is that we're going to be fixing these elements and just making a easy inventory request screen. So the first thing is to right click on this new page, and then we're going to be renaming that to inventory request. There you go. That's all it takes to rename our screen. And then once you have renamed the screen, let's select the browse screen. And then, because now we're going back to the first screen, we're going to select this plus icon that we have here. And while that is selected, we have the on select property selected here. And basically this is what Power FX essentially is. This is the low code logic that we are adding to the screen. So right now, what it's doing is it's actually creating a new form and then navigating to a screen where we can add a new item. So if we were to test that right now and click on the plus screen, it goes to a new form where we are able to add a new item to our list of inventory here. But we're not going to be doing that. We're actually going to be changing that function to this here. So all we can do is we can just highlight that and paste in the new function. And just to quickly go over it, it's a very simple function, and it navigates to the inventory request screen. That's it. That's all that we're doing. All we're doing is when we click on the plus sign, we are going to navigate to the inventory request screen. So then from that, let's go ahead and play the app. Let's press on plus. There you go. This is our inventory request screen. Obviously, we need to just change that a bit so that it actually tells us what it is. So now we're going to delete our form. This is the form that we have. We don't need that form at the moment. And we're going to be adding additional items onto our screen. So let's go ahead and select our insert icon here. Let's look for a text label. There you go. That has now been added onto our screen. Let's go ahead and change the text. Again, very easy to use interface, not too complex. You know, maybe at the start it can be a bit overwhelming, but it's actually quite simple to use. Let's go ahead and change this text label to request reason, right? That is our text label there. And then let's go ahead and add a text input. So of course, we can just go to the insert tab, click on input. There you go, text input. This is like a text box that we're going to be having. So we need one text label and another text input there. They are centered nicely on our screen. Very easy to do. If you want to, we can remove this input here and maybe even add some hint text just to let them know what it is that they will be doing. Then we're going to be selecting the label on the app screen on the right-hand side in the properties panel and changing that label to request. So what we'll do is we're going to click on this over here and then change this label to inventory request. There you go. As simple as that. The next step, again, I'm reading this from our Learn Life exercise, is to select the text box on the app screen and then click on the right side on our properties panel and change the default property to say need inventory to cover customer needs, right? So that is a bit of a cheat there, but we can add our default value to need inventory to cover customer needs. Let's go ahead and add that as a default value over there. Let's have that. And of course, as we play the app, we can edit this as needed, right? We can put whatever reason that we want. But for the purposes of the demo, we will be putting in that default property. Let's go ahead and put that back. And then we're going to select the text label in the inserts panel, and we're going to be adding another label to our screen. Let's go ahead and do that. Being mindful of the time that we have left, let's go ahead and do that quickly. We're going to be changing this text to inventory item, so we know what item it is we want to select. And then what we will be doing is we're going to be clicking on the insert label once more. Let's type the word drop and bringing in a drop down list. That is all we need to select the inventory item of our choosing. And how we populate that is, if we just read our exercise over here, we're going to click on the drop down list as we have now, go on the right side properties panel. So that's this panel over here. We're going to look for the items property. That's the one that is selected. And from there, we're going to just type in the name flooring estimates. Now, if you remember, flooring estimates is the name of the data source from Excel. So if you're using a SQL Server table or a Dataverse table, just mention the name of your data source and all the elements will be populated inside of that dropdown. Maybe we might not want these names because these are very common names. Maybe there's another type of name we want to use inside of that. There is a way for us to edit that by coming onto the right-hand side of the screen and making sure that we are selecting the proper name there. As you can see, now each item.
Right. So you quickly saw what Khomolemo was just showing you in terms of how you, as a traditional developer, can be able to build your first ever Power App. So, what did we actually learn today, in which we actually went through the different kinds of information that's there? So, first, again, our summary for today is that we looked at how you can grow productivity across business units with fusion development teams, increase tech intensity with a fusion development team, organize business and IT professionals into a fusion development team, and also got introduced and understood what Power FX is and how to actually use it. And then Homolemo just walked us through on how to actually use a bit of Power FX with that demo, where he created an app using Power Apps and then modified that app using Power FX. Again, that is basically what you needed to learn today for that specific demo and also throughout this specific learn module and our session today. And again, we cannot stress this enough, is that all what we've been talking about is something that you can actually find on this specific two learn modules, which is transform business software authoring with fusion development teams, where we just go to the nitty gritty details about fusion development teams, and also understanding low code as a traditional developer. And we went through how to actually build a specific power app using an already existing data source. So it could be your Excel, it could be your SharePoint, it could be your SQL Server database. Again, these learn modules are found on the links that are on the screen, and also you can also, if you choose, scan the QR code on the screen and follow along with what we've been doing this entire time. But that's not all. Be sure to not miss the next episode, which is integrating OpenAI enabled web APIs with Azure API management through Visual Studio, because this is a series of episodes, so you don't want to miss the next one. So you would actually find it on the same place and be able to use OpenAI and OpenAI enabled web APIs with Azure API management. Last but not least, we know that it's February, and what we have for February, we actually have low code February, where we go through all these different kinds of series where it actually touches on low code development. But it's not just low code development, it's low code plus Azure, where we have 30 days of low code. You go through the different kinds of materials for low code development. We take you from zero to hero, and there are different kinds of workshops, dev workshops, similar to the one that we're actually doing today. And also, what's a 30 days of initiative without a cloud skills challenge? For an example, we have a cloud skills challenge for the low code February, so that you can be able to complete all the different kinds of resources and learn modules that we have in store for you, and also become part of a community. So there are different communities dedicated to the Power Platform that you can take advantage of and be able to learn from other developers, be it citizen developers or professional developers. I actually call them fusion developers because it's a mix within that community. And again, you have all of these live sessions that we are actually doing. So be sure to not miss those. And we're just empowering all of the developers using the Power Platform, and also some a little bit of professional developer tools, your Azure Functions, your Azure API management, and your Azure DevOps. So be sure not to miss out on anything that is happening within Low Code February, and make sure that you go to the link that you see at the bottom and register for all the sessions that we have. There's a lot of awesome content that we have in store for you. Other than that, from me and Homolemo, and on behalf of Homolemo, thank you for coming to the session and hoping to see you next time. Bye.